Hey everybody, Mike Foster here with the Camp Easy Teardrop Camper. Hey, when I started my build, I had a lot of questions. What shape do I want the camper to be? How much is this thing going to weigh? Can I pull it with my small vehicle? But one of the biggest questions I had was, do I have the tools to build a teardrop camper? And if I don't have them, are they expensive? Well, I've got some good news for you. You don't have to own a cabinet shop to build a teardrop camper. Some semi-basic tools will probably get you by. During my build, I've kind of made a list of what my favorite tools are. Some of them are my favorite because I use them so often. Some of them are my favorite because when I do use them, they just work so well. So I'm going to share with you what my list of favorite tools are, and hopefully they'll help you in your build. So let's check them out. Okay, you probably didn't expect to see a tape measure on my list of favorite tools. You would think that's just a given anytime you're building something out of wood. But this is a special tape measure. This is called a center point tape measure. On a center point tape measure, one side of the tape is graduated in standard units. The other side of the tape is graduated exactly 1/2 of standard units. So, if you measure something that's 8.5 inches wide, all you do is find 8.5 inches wide on the other side of the scale, and that's exactly the midpoint. I had to measure midpoints for all kinds of stuff on this camper, and instead of having to do complicated fractions, it was easier just to grab my center point tape measure. Pretty cool tool. My next tool is the 1/4 inch crown pneumatic stapler. I've used a brad nailer over the years and they do fine finish work, leave a very small hole. But a 1/4 inch crown stapler I find holds thin plywood quite a bit better. I think where you still have a little wood in between the two legs on the staple, it really gives some meat to that joint and it does a really nice job. I've used this on putting my ceiling in. I'll be using it when I skin the camper with the plywood before I put my aluminum on. I've just used this a whole bunch. It gives a good strong joint. Okay, this contractor saw is one of my favorite tools for a couple of reasons. One is you can rip small parts out of a large piece of lumber, and two, it can save you money. And here's what I mean. Why go to the big box store and buy a beautiful 8-foot piece of lumber that's clear of any kind of blemishes or knots, only to rip a bunch of small pieces out of it, when you can buy a lower grade board for a little over half the price and still rip a whole bunch of small pieces out of it. That's right, I found that you can get almost as much yield out of a long board that has a few knots in it as you can a long board without knots in it, but your price goes way, way down. So this cheap $100 contractor saw has saved me a bunch of money. The only thing to remember are the scales on these cheap saws are not necessarily that accurate. I still like to take a tape measure while it's unplugged or turned off and measure the distance between the rip fence and the edge of the tooth on the blade to get an accurate cut. But once you do that, this thing will do a good job and save you quite a bit of money. Next on my list is the Kreg pocket hole system. I use this tool building cabinet doors, joining the spars on the roof to the side walls, just about everything from one end of this camper to the other. When you use a little wood glue and a Kreg screw in that joint, it is super strong. The clamps on the front here are made by Kreg. They work well with the pocket hole system. I mounted this one to a piece of particle board just to give it extra stability. I find that I use this tool super often and it's super easy to use, so it's one of my favorite tools by far. Number one on my list of favorite tools has to be my cordless drill and my cordless circular saw. Now, you don't have to have a cordless drill or a cordless circular saw, but it sure helps you move around the camper more freely. I find that having a cordless circular saw and drill of the same brand that use the same battery sure makes it a lot easier when the battery goes dead and you need to grab another pack. Also, the cordless circular saw keeps that cord out of your way when you're trying to saw a large piece of plywood, and you're going to find that you're going to have to saw a lot of pieces of plywood. So those are a few of the tools I found to be pretty handy on my build so far. It's not a complete list of all the tools I've used, but some of the ones that really stick out in my mind as being the most useful and kind of those that speed up the process of building a teardrop camper. Now I may do a part 2 to this video on specialty tools like those that you use in the electrical and whatnot. So if you like what you see, subscribe to my channel and we'll see you on the road.
Yeah.